Hello, Professor in class. This is Reginald Jackson, here to present the Lab 4, your second hack, Part 1 presentation. Grand Canyon University, Class 610, Penetration Testing and Risk Management. The objectives for our second hack, Part 1, are to enumerate the target and provide screenshots, utilize the OWASP ZAP, identify, compare, and contrast NICTO versus OWASP ZAP, and excuse me, identify and summarize CSRF, identify and summarize XSS, utilize Nexus, and explore at least 10 possible vulnerabilities identified during the vulnerability testing. The presentation of your second hack part 1 assignment. It is to utilize flaw hypothesis methodology, conduct a vulnerability and analysis mapping, use application tools and techniques to identify vulnerabilities, apply techniques to trace a vulnerability to its root cause. What attack vector would I use and why would I use it? Vulnerability disclosure and vulnerability research and root cause. The network enumeration of the Keyoptrix 2 virtual machine. As we did before with Keyoptrix 1, we ran the nmap command to find out the IP address of the Keyoptrix virtual machine. For Keyoptrix 2, we ran nmap 192.168.56.0/24. The cipher address is 24, which basically says I want to find out every peripheral that has an IP address within that fourth octet. As we can see, for our Keyoptrix 2 machine, it yielded 192.168.56.106. Continuing on with the network enumeration, the assignment asked for us to run some of the commands that we ran in the Keyoptrix 1 VM. So I ran the nmap switch S capital V 192.168.56.106, which is, we want to find out the version that the Keyoptrix 2 machine is running. As we can see, vulnerabilities exist in both machines. One vulnerability we don't see is that we saw in Keyoptrix 1 is the 139. Port 139 is not listed in the Keyoptrix 2 machine. The second that I ran was for Keyoptrix 2 is the nmap switch p switch space switch capital A 192.168.56.106. Again, the same result, the same information that was in Keyoptrix 1 is also present in Keyoptrix 2 virtual machine. For this assignment, I had to update and upgrade the Kali box to ensure that the network hacking tools would work. As you can see, they all passed and they are all good to go now. Running the NICTO command and vulnerability and analysis mapping. Once the update and upgrade were completed, I ran the NICTO tool. As you can see above, my Keyoptrix VM does not have X-XSS vulnerability. Research shows that this vulnerability exists in older versions of Internet Explorer, Chrome, and Safari. The browser used during this assignment is Microsoft Edge. The majority of modern browsers, because they have a strong content security policy that disables the use of JavaScript. The header is meant to stop pages from loading when they detect reflected cross-site scripting. The X-content type option header is missing. Vulnerability is common security issue with web applications. And this vulnerability arises when a web server does not set the X-content type options header in its response, allowing threat actors to perform content type sniffing attacks, and that's I'm sorry, that the X content type option header missing. That's where I got it from. IO IoT IO threat. I'm sorry. Please forgive me. IO threat secure your startup today, and that should be in the reference page. The practice of clickjacking, which we can see. Also, clickjacking sometimes is referred to as UI or user interface redress attack, involving a threat actor using transparent layers to trick a user into clicking on a link on a different website, and when they meant to click on the top level page by hijacking clicks intended for their web page and diverting them to another page, most likely owned by the application domain or both. The threat actor is hijacking clicks intended for their page. The X-Frame Options HTTP response header can be used to indicate whether a browser should be allowed to render a page inside the frame or iframe. Sites can use this to avoid clickjacking attacks. Next, we have to compare and contrast Nikto versus OWASP Zap. They're both uh, web application scanners. Nikto is a free software command line vulnerability scanner tool that scans for unsafe files, computer generated images, outdated software, and other threats. While, on the other hand, OZAP, or should I say OWASP Zap, is an open source web application vulnerability scanner. Unlike Nikto, OWASP Zap uses a graphical interface to step through the process of finding vulnerabilities. Each of these scanners can be used to find the most common web application vulnerabilities, such as SQL injection, cross-site scripting, and many others. OWASP also stands for Open Web Application Security Project. The ZAP is Z Attack Proxy. Running the OWASP application scanner, we see that we have the CSRF, vulnerability. The CSRF is a cross-site request forgery. The tokens are connected in pairs of tokens that users receive in order to authenticate their request and stop attackers from issuing requests on their behalf. Each token has a distinct hidden value that is unpredictable and impossible for a third party to figure out. The absence of these tokens could possibly lead to a CSRF attack. In layman's terms, basically what it means is that the fact that the browser automatically sends cookies with each request to a web server is no mystery, but it is often taken advantage of by the CSRF attack. By tricking the user's browser into doing this, an attacker can submit a request to a server authenticating the attacker as the victim, including the victim's cookies. This is more of results that we had when we were running the OWASP ZAP program. Now, we were also instructed to install Nexus. In order to use Nexus hacking tool, it had to be first installed. First, I had to open Firefox browser, navigate to Google, do a search for Nexus. I downloaded the above version. Nexus that's 10.5.3 Ubuntu 14.04 AMD 64.deb. Then I unzip the package, and of course it tells us at the end of it, it lets us know that we can start the package. Then it gives us a website that we can go to for Kali to configure the scanner itself. I didn't install the Nexus as the video uh, showed. The instructor already had his downloaded on his machine, so all he had to do was click a button and there it was. As you can see, Nexus is installed and it is a web-based product. The requirement of this was to build the Nexus scan using the IP of our CaliBox, which is 10.0, or my CaliBox 10.0.2.8. As you can see, it's been built. So then I had to run it. And as I ran it, um, the only vulnerabilities that showed were informational, as you can see here. So what I did, I wanted to find out, um, okay, if I run it on the Keyoptrix 2 VM, what would be the result of that? It actually resulted in almost the same thing. The 192.168.56.106 has info, or should I say informational vulnerabilities as well. These are the vulnerabilities that we found, or that I found during the vulnerability scan. As we can see, there's SQL injection, absence of CSRF tokens, content security policy CSP header not set, missing anti-clickjacking headers, server leaks information, server leaks version information, X content type option header missing, outdated software, uh, web server returns valid response with junk HTTP methods, or in other words, false positives, and PHP uh, leaks potentially sensitive information. PHP is Hypertext Preprocessor. You would think it would be HPP, but they have their reasons for. Next, we were told to um, we were asked to use the flawed hypothesis methodology. What is the flaw hypothesis method? It is a systematic approach to finding vulnerabilities in a computer or system or network that can be exploited by a threat actor. I discovered that the Keyoptrix 2 VM machine has vulnerabilities through the network enumeration has many vulnerabilities through network enumeration and multiple scans that we have performed, missing security configurations, outdated software, and numerous open ports. It would not take long for a threat actor to find a way into the Keyoptrix 2 virtual machine. What attack vector would I use? I would use the injection. The open ports alone provide opportunity for this attack. This leads to tools and techniques to identify vulnerabilities. To discover common threats and vulnerabilities, I will employ network enumeration. There are a variety of tools available for use to enumerate the network or a network. Each tool performs the enumeration or scans according to its concept. These tools pull much of the same information, but it's completed in different ways. This assignment called for us to use Nikto and OWASP Zap. Nikto, of course, is a command line tool, while OWASP Zap uses graphical user interface. I employed Nikto and OWASP to perform scans from two different tools to operate on different ends of the spectrum. Of course, command line and graphical user interface. These tools were compared, the results were compared, as mentioned. The results were almost the same. Nexus was employed as a very intrusive scan to yield vulnerabilities at every level of the network. This leads to the vulnerability disclosure. Oftentimes, organizations want to wait until a mitigation strategy has been identified before making the vulnerability available to the public. For this cause, vulnerability releases can bring a lot of contention. Cybersecurity experts and the organizations they work for should make the vulnerability that led to a breach of their network public knowledge as soon as possible. This gives the public opportunity to self mitigate the effects of their breach, whether or not it's their credit card information, their passports, and other PII that may have been compromised by the breach. Organizations have the responsibility for the protection of their employees, customers, partners, and contractors' information. Okay, finally, it is the vulnerability research and root cause. Injection, and that is with emphasis. What is an injection attack? When a threat actor introduces harmful input into a web application, computer, server, or database, when the input is processed and then triggered, it can cause hardware or software to crash or be corrupted. This is known as an injection attack. This is one of the easiest, earliest assaults on online applications, but it continues to be one of the most pervasive and dangerous, making it the king of vulnerabilities. There are a variety of different types of injection attacks: code injection, CRLF, which is character return and line feed, cross-site scripting, um, which I would like to talk just a little bit about. It is when the attacker injects arbitrary script, usually JavaScript, into a legitimate website or application. This script is then executed inside the victim's browser. And what can happen from that is they can impersonate that person, they can deface, they can use defacement, and sometimes it can even give them full access to all of their information within that system. There are others, such as email header injection, host header injection, and a myriad of others. What is the root cause of the injection attack? Mainly, it is insufficient user input validation. This attack has been around for more than 20 years. How do we mitigate it? Validate the user's inputs. Again, it's been around for 20 years. That is the end of the presentation, the reference that I use. Thank you very much. Have a great day.